Welcome, everybody, to Bigfoot Odyssey. I am tonight's host, Brent Thomas. I am not Carrie Arnold. No matter what I do, I just can't be Carrie Arnold. Those are some big shoes to fill, but I'm going to fill them as well as I know how. And thank you all for joining us tonight. I am, of course, joined by the wonderful Daniela, who is kind of running the show here, making my life a heck of a lot easier, as well as my normal co-host, Mr. Don Longbeard.
Hola.
And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we got a great show lined up for you. I hope you're going to enjoy this. I know I'm going to enjoy it. And we are joined tonight by Mr. Kevin Keeney, who is of Arizona Bigfoot. And he is joining us tonight to talk about his experiences and his research. And it's going to be a heck of a journey. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. And just a correction on that, it's Arizona Squatch, but
Arizona Squatch. My sorry.
yeah,
There's always got to be one.
that's all right. We're starting the show off right.
If I don't screw up something now, I'll just screw it up later, Kevin. So it's good we got that out of the way. But welcome to the show. And if you could just take a few minutes and kind of give us a little background on how this journey started for you. Where did it begin? How did you get a Bigfoot fascination?
Okay, well, here in Arizona, they're called the Mogollon Monster. That's because of there's an uplift in the center part of the state called the Mogollon Rim. When I was a Boy Scout, it was 1980, maybe 1981, we went on a backpack trip just at the bottom of this uplift. And we'd gotten a late start in, and probably about a mile in is all the farther we got. And we're camped on this flat, and there was a kind of a drop off, went down into a drainage, and then it went up a higher hill that was probably 4 times as high as what we were. Top of that hill to where we were, I don't know, probably 50 yards. So there was myself, 4 other Boy Scouts, and 2 scout leaders. The scout leaders had fallen asleep, and we're sitting around the campfire, talking smack, whatever 13-year-old boys talk about.
Sure.
And I was leaning against 2 pine trees that were kind of growing together, and then it was that drainage behind me, and we could hear the excuse me, this massive rock flying through the air. We didn't know it was a rock at first, but it hit the ground right behind and below where I was sitting. Of course, I came unglued, came off the ground. We all freaked out, yelling at the scout leaders. We threw all of our firewood on the fire. Scout leaders wake up. They don't hear anything, and they're like, "You guys need to go back to sleep. You're just hearing critters out there. No big deal." And there's not a chance we're going to sleep. And so the scout leaders, they were in the concrete business, so they had gotten off work and took us up there, so they were pretty wiped out. So they pretty much went back to sleep. And so we're huddled around the fire, looking around, going, "What the hell is that?" And then we hear this massive steps coming down the hill towards our direction, and it was just this massive woof, woof, walking down the hill. And so of course we start screaming. The scout leaders wake up, and we're like, "There's something on the hill." And they're like, "No, it's just you're probably hearing a deer. Go back to sleep." "No, it's not a deer. You don't understand." And, so this kept going on and kept going on for about 2.5 hours. And finally at the last time that we had woke the scout leaders up, they're, "Guys, we've had enough, go to sleep." And just then a tree got snapped. We found the tree the next morning, and it was about 5 inches in diameter. Got snapped at about the 8-foot level. But anyway, so we hear this massive loud snap. It's dead quiet out in the forest, and all of a sudden, crack. Yeah, and so one of the scout leaders, he pulls out a 44 Magnum and fires a shot up in the air, and you hear this thing go crushing off through the brush, and manzanita and everything, and got maybe 100, 150 yards away, and just let out this wow. And so it was like what the hell? You know, Mogollon monsters trying to eat us. And yeah,
Right.
you know, it was terrifying, you know.
Yeah.
You know, scout leaders, you know, told us don't ever mention this again. Yeah. Yeah, right. Um, you know, so, you know, throughout the rest of my life, you know, my friends all hear about this story. Well, was it a Bigfoot? I can't say it was a Bigfoot. I didn't see anything, but I know it wasn't a deer. I know it wasn't an elk. I know it wasn't a bear. You know, I can tell you what it wasn't, you know, so, you know, you go with that.
Right.
And then the show Finding Bigfoot come out, and you know, got real interested in that because I've always known that the Bigfoot were real. You know, Patterson Gimlin film, you know, that was kind of a no brainer for me, and but never, you know, had much interest in going out doing this stuff until the Finding Bigfoot show.
Right.
And on I think it was season 3, probably episode 5, they did their town hall meeting in Payson, Arizona, which is, you know, Mogollon Monster Central. And you know, I got real interested in, you know, in getting back up there. And so in June of 2017, we were on our annual family camp out, and I found an area that, you know, according to the show, looked squatchy. And it was a drainage that went into a bigger drainage. And so I went and got my son, and who's in his 30s, and we went out walking around looking to see if we could find anything. And, you know, of course, we found a footprint that was 16 inches in length, and I'm like, you know, and then we found the next footprint, you know, and I was just completely amazed at, you know, the distance and the stride.
Right.
And you know, so we took photographs of that, and then we went down, decided to go down into the big drainage because there's a big dirt area down there. It's like, well, if there's tracks here, there's got to be tracks down there. And we were on a game trail. And so went down into this dirt area, and there was absolutely nothing. But on our way down that hill, I had heard a knock. And so I'm looking at my son to see if he's showing any signs of hearing anything. And no, he's just bebopping down the hill. And I'm like, well, maybe I'm hearing shit. And we got down the bottom, and we're looking around, and all of a sudden, whack! I was like, oh, you hear that? Yeah, you know, and we're out in the middle of nowhere. Okay,
Sure.
You know, there's nobody within miles of us.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so I look around. Takes me about 5 minutes to find a, you know, good enough stick that I can do a knock with, and so I do a knock, and immediately got a return knock back. And it was from where that game trail was, but probably about another, I don't know, 60 yards down, 50 yards maybe.
Hmm.
You know, they're like, he's right up there. Yeah, my son goes, I want to do a knock. And so he did a knock and got a double knock back. We're like, I'm going to do a whistle, you know.
Oh.
And the other side of the drainage, a little farther back, longer than it would have taken for an echo. It wasn't an echo. It was a different tone, but we got whistled back at. It was like, you know, and you know, so boom, you know, this whole thing exploded in my face.
Right.
And you know, without going into all the long boring details, you know, I'd set up a trail camera with a granola bar, and later that night decided, well, the grandkids were playing with chem lights. I was like, I'm going to go stick this chem light next to the granola bar. It'll attract them. You know, I don't know what I'm doing.
Sure.
So my son and I, we go back out there, and half the granola bar is gone. I'm like, all right, cool. Whatever took that granola bar, I've got pictures of, you know. My trail camera was 18 feet away from the stump that I had wedged this into.
Uh-huh.
And so next morning I retrieved the trail camera and pulled the SD card out, was going through it. And I had the pictures of when I set the trail camera up, I had pictures of when we came out with the granola bar. I had pictures of when my son and son-in-laws and a couple of my older grandkids went back out there later that night. I had all those pictures, but whatever took half that granola bar, I had no pictures of, you know. You know, so I was like, how the hell does that happen? You know, this thing takes pictures of butterflies. You know?
Now, can I ask you a question? Was the granola bar wrapped when you left it out there, or did you open it?
No, I opened it.
Okay.
I opened it halfway, and it was a tree rot, and so where the tree had broke was right about the 4.5 foot level,
Okay.
so it was up in the air a little bit.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah, it could have been a squirrel in the middle of the night going looking for food. It could have been a raccoon. It could have been all that stuff. But why? I got a pretty decent trail camera. I've been a hunter all my life. Spent the vast majority of my life in the outdoors. And why this is the only time my trail camera malfunctioned is beyond me. So
it's funny how often that happens. And how many times people that have tried trail cams say whatever's going on with these beings, it seems to affect the trail cams, because so many people talk about these weird malfunctions, and it boggles my imagination.
I can talk to you for hours about electronic failures that I've had.
Oh, sure.
Man. But so anyway, we left the campsite and went home, and it took me about 2 weeks before I finally decided that I'm going to make a report on this, because it's like, I didn't see anything, but, there's just way too much for me to ignore. And, these guys are going to think I'm just full of shit. And I was like, screw it, I'm going to do it anyway. So I made the report, and, Chuck got back with me about a week later because he was out of town. And we decided to go back. He said, can you take me back to this location? I said, yeah, I'll take you back and show you every inch of it. And so we had to wait for some of the monsoon storms to clear out. And we decided to go meet up there. And we spent 3 nights up there. And man, my world got rocked.
Wow. That's incredible. That is so powerful. So that was one of your profound experiences. Now, when you say reported it, I assume obviously you mean the BFRO, or did you report it to a different group?
No, on the BFRO website. Okay. I was only going off of what I knew at that time, and
sure,
the only people I knew of that were doing Bigfoot research was the BFRO. I just had no clue the amount of researchers that are actually out here.
And did you get any feedback from the BFRO guy? Did he make any kind of statements regarding that area, or that he saw something too?
Well, when we were talking on the phone, it's one of the reasons why he contacted me, because that particular area has an extreme amount of activity. And so he was real interested in seeing the area and going up and doing a few nights, and see if we could get any action. And matter of fact, that very first night we were up there, he had his first night sighting. And I forgot what he said, how long he watched this guy for. It was a little while. I couldn't see what he was looking at because we were sitting facing each other. Yeah, and there was a couple large pine trees blocking my view of where he was looking. But I was more interested in the other side because I just kept getting this massive, distinct feeling that I couldn't ignore of, I'm watching you. And, so I'm concentrating over here. He's looking over here. And that very first night, I got green eye glow, probably about the 8 foot level. And
green, that's interesting.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, and I'd gone over to the truck to get a bottle of water, and he's explaining a lot of stuff to me, because what do you know about Bigfoot? Not much. And so we spent the whole first day, just him telling me what he knows. And and then he starts talking about the woo camp, and I'm like, man, what a bunch of crackpots. He's like, I'm not there with them, but if you're going to get into this, you better keep an open mind, because there's a lot of reports of some strange stuff, and that's the best advice I was ever given. And so anyway, I'd gone over the truck, and he goes, I think I'm getting zapped. And I'm like, well, what the hell is that? And he starts explaining what he was feeling. I go, well, that's kind of weird because I was feeling something like that, probably 10 minutes ago. And he goes, anything you hear, smell, or feel or see, speak up. And I was like, all right. And it just, I also hate the word evolved, but it just evolved from that night into this incredible journey I'm on right now with them.
Now, before you had mentioned that, and I know the granola bar is kind of a bit of that, but you had mentioned that you had tried to do some habituating. Is that correct?
Oh, I absolutely habituate.
And still,
Yes. I just came back from a 2-week trip.
Okay.
I was gone the 9th through the 22nd. I try to go to the same location. My primary location that I called Squatch Camp, the government has shut down now. They've locked the gate because of vehicle restriction. They don't want people driving in there.
Sure.
All right. Makes sense. But, I always park my vehicle in the same place. I don't know if you're familiar with who Mitch Rate was. He was a researcher here in Arizona. He passed away a couple years ago before I got into this, so I never got the opportunity to meet him. But, some of the stuff I do was following in his footsteps. I always wear a red shirt. I always park in the same spot. My chair is always in the same spot. Everything I do is, to the point to where it's extremely monotonous.
Sure.
And, it's just like, I want to do something new. But it's, and the whole thing with the red shirt was like, okay, here's the guy in the red shirt. Okay. He's parked there. Yeah. That's there. That he's okay. Yeah. And what I'm trying to do is build a level of trust with them. I'm not in this, excuse me. I'm not in this to prove anything to anybody. This is,
Okay.
this is my journey. And I'm, I've got to the point where it's like, I need to share, a lot of this, what's going on. The thing I operate on is that, as a researcher, I'm not going into this with a set paradigm. And what I mean by that is I'm not letting a single paradigm dictate what my experience is going to be. I let my experiences dictate what my paradigm is.
And that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Now, I if you don't mind, I got to ask you though. Obviously, I'm sure as a person involved in the community and stuff, you must be aware of some of the warnings and cautionary tales about habituation. Does any of that concern you, or how do you feel about it?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Okay.
None whatsoever. Just for an example, March of last year, I started sleeping on a cot outdoors. I was touched. They came up and put hands on me.
Oh, wow.
I like to say that, that I was absolutely prepared for that. And, that I'm not afraid of anything.
Sure.
Because, combat veteran, I've seen the worst there is.
Right.
But, the head of my sleeping bag was pinched shut. I was actually one sleeping bag inside of another one because it was about 32 degrees outside. And the sleeping bag was pinched shut. And I'm not saying I got lifted in the air. It was just that was the kind of sensation that I felt that I came off the ground. And, I was not capable of moving. I was not capable of talking. And I was just kind of, I got set back down. I wanted to lift my head out of the sleeping bag to look at him. I could hear him walking away, but at that point in time, I was too frightened. It's like, I don't know if I want to see this. I still primarily sleep outside on a cot, and no, I have absolutely no fear of them. If at least the ones that I'm dealing with, and this is 4 different locations that I've been habituating at. If they were these dangerous things that everybody keeps talking about, I wouldn't be here. I spend a lot of time out there by myself. Maybe the difference in their behavior with me versus other researchers is I don't go out there as an intruder. I'm out there as a guest. This is their house. I'm a guest there, and I'm acting accordingly.
Sure. And I respect your approach, and I respect what you're saying. It's just, being on the outside looking in. I'm not an active researcher. I've checked out a few things, and of course, I'm quite interested in the field. But that was just some things that occurred to me, and I appreciate your honest answers. I think that's, very well what you're doing and what you're getting into, and I think it's incredibly brave.
Well,
What about
what's the difference between bravery and stupidity? It's the final outcome, I guess. Like I said, I have spent so much time in the outdoors. I've been a long distance backpack, solo backpacker, group backpacker, done a lot of wilderness survival. Being out there alone is nothing new to me.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the methodology that I use is we have extreme light discipline, meaning no lanterns, no white lights whatsoever. If we have to turn on a flashlight, it's a red light, so we don't lose our night vision. It's it's an incredible world. I'm here to tell you.
Yeah.
There's such a lot to cover, but do you want to have a look at some of the photos that you sent?
Sure.
Some of the what do you want to start with, the structure ones?
We can start with those structures.
I'll just go through them because there's quite a few. They're the same, but at different angles.
Yeah, it's just different angles of it because I was trying to catch, the sheer size of this. The size of these trees that are, that have been placed in this structure. I think one of the photos actually catches the root ball. One of the root balls of these branches is up in the air. But a couple of those logs that are there are full-size trees that were placed into this structure. So it wasn't squirrels building this.
That's pretty intense. And you think about the weight of something like that. I mean, that's not a floodland either, then, right?
No. They're not a floodplain whatsoever.
Okay.
Matter of fact, this had caught my eye as I was driving into my location. This was about 8 miles down a dirt road, and it was 150 yards off the side of the road. I just happened to glance over and see it, and I was like, whoa, let's go investigate this. Is this something that loggers did, years ago? So I walked around this thing for, I was there probably 20 minutes, half hour, looking at every angle of it. And, there's no way that, anything other than something with extreme strength built that. And it was built intentionally and purposefully.
Do you think that's a blind, do you suppose?
No.
Okay. What do you think it's for? What is your idea that they would be constructing these things for?
That particular structure, I don't have the slightest idea.
Okay. Do you think that they could be just markers showing feats of strength, perhaps?
That's a very good possibility. That's the first thing is none of us know what any of them are, and we all have our hypothesis, which is just $100 word for a guess. the way it was built, it would serve no purpose as a blind. There was no signs on the ground of smaller debris, like smaller branches being placed on it
Right.
and then falling off after time. There was no sign of any of that. All this stuff was brought and put into that location.
Right.
So a territorial marker. I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I don't know.
Well, you know what? I just think in terms of like bear. Now, the big bears especially will reach up really high and scratch high up into a tree, and many people believe that's a marker to other bears to go, oh, that's bigger than me. I'm not going to go here. And so maybe some of these structures could be, this is way too big for me to lift. That whatever's here is a lot bigger and stronger than me. I'm not going in there. That's just occurs to me.
Yeah. Well, my personal belief is they are so much smarter than us that
I don't think they need stick signs for messages, or just my opinion. People said things like that they're a marker of where there's water. I don't know why Bigfoot needs a signpost to say here's water. I'm pretty sure
they don't. They mark their travel ways. My buddy Chuck was with the BFRO. He's really good at figuring out their travel ways, and I followed one for probably about a half a mile, and I think I don't even want to. I want to say probably 5 miles at the best of my recollection of what he told me that he was able to follow, the bent trees and the same kind of trail markers that Native Americans used,
sure,
100 years ago or so. So yeah, there's there's pathway markers. You got these X structures and these what look like teepee structures and just some of the stuff that I've come across is just mind-boggling.
Yeah. Now, can I ask you a question, Kevin? And this is not me disparaging you at all. I'm just really curious as to how you come to this conclusion. But how do you come to the conclusion that you believe that they are much more intelligent than us? What is it about them?
Well, first off, where's all the pictures of them? They don't like cameras.
Yeah, that's true.
There's none in the zoos. That's because they're smarter than us. They know how to evade us. They, it would probably take me, probably 2-3 hours to go into full explanation of why I feel and believe that they're smarter than us.
Sure.
But simple examples. Mind speak. How do they have that intuitive ability? To communicate telepathically. It's far above what we're capable of.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I don't really know. I sometimes think they are smarter than us, and then other times I think, well, maybe they're equally smarter in the same ballpark as us, and I'm not really sure. But I was just curious of how you came to that conclusion, because I think that's a profound thing to say, and it could very well be true. I just don't know.
Yeah, it's just the stuff that I've experienced. I'm a pretty analytical guy, and I'll do a lot of sitting and a lot of thinking, especially after some of the stuff that I experienced, and just trying to, classical science, can't even come close to touching some of the stuff that I'm experiencing, which has absolutely caused me to dive into quantum mechanics, quantum physics, and and that, the mathematics to that is way above my pay grade. And, I understand the concepts of it, and, and the theories of it, to the best of my ability. But you know, the quantum world is absolutely 100% mathematically proven and has never been mathematically disproven.
Sure.
Yeah, you know, so something that is you know, when things happen that can only be answered by you know by the quantum world, you know, that automatically right there tells me that, you know, I'm dealing with something a lot smarter than I am. You know, something that has, you know, what's the right way to put this? Is not bound by the laws of physics that we are bound to.
Mm. And I will, you know, before we came on the air, you were mentioning, and this is something that always boggles my imagination too, is that here you have a 4, 5, 6, 700, 800, whatever pound giant of a being that can somehow work through an incredibly dense, thick, scrubby forest without making a sound at will.
Yeah,
You know, and then
I'm still waiting for somebody to explain to me how that can happen. You
when they
know,
want to make a sound, they'll sound like a freight train. But you know, then they can just go whisper quiet and not even not even crunchy leaves
well,
are
you know,
disturbed.
and it's not just the fact that they're not making any noise, but
Uh-huh.
it's at the speed that they're going through there. You know, one of my
How would you call their movement? How would you describe their movement when you say they're speeding? Is it,
oh
you know, a very
I
smooth?
oh yeah, very smooth. One of my night sightings at this particular location, it's a pretty open area. You know, about 100 years ago, you know, it was a sawmill, so there's not a lot of trees in this particular spot, where in this camping spot, and I was at one end of it. I had two other researchers. Well, I had Chuck and one other researcher up there with me, and I kind of walked up to the top end of the camp, and you know, from the top end to the bottom of it was 120 yards probably,
Mhm.
and maybe 70 yards from one side to the other. And so I was up at the top end of it, and I watched this thing go all the way across and down this hill. Um, uh, probably a quarter moon out, you know, so it wasn't real bright, but it was bright enough. When I saw this thing go by, um, it had to have been doing 40 miles an hour, you know, because it covered the distance. I'm guessing from where I first saw him to where he disappeared down it, going down into this drainage. Probably 110 yards, and covered it in a matter of a couple seconds.
Wow.
I mean, I was floored. You know,
Yeah.
I know how to track objects. You know, um, and I was just floored. You know, my jaw hit the ground. I was like, how in the hell did I just see what I saw? You know, and you know, so you know, when things like this happen, you know, it's like, what do you do with it? You know, here's this being out here in the forest that just covered a distance of over 100 yards in just a matter of a couple seconds, and it was just the smoothest thing you could ever imagine. Never made a sound.
That's amazing.
Never made a sound. Not only did it not make a sound, it didn't leave a single track.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Wow.
mean, there's some things that don't add up. Now, I know you also submitted to Daniela some audio files as well as the pictures.
Yeah.
Maybe now would be a good time to go through those so you can share with our audience all the things you've captured.
Okay.
I'll put the I'll put it up and then we'll talk about it.
Okay.
And I've looped it a few times, so. What do you
Yeah.
think that they're saying there?
What I think they're saying, to me, sounds like heck to Sue. Um, and then that sound you hear afterwards, that's also part of how they talk. I've recorded similar things to this on multiple occasions, and I always get these metallic clicks and these metallic pops and this metallic sound. And so the hypothesis that I'm working on right now is that in their language, when they're communicating, that kind of like how the Aborigines down in Australia have clicks and pops and stuff like that when they talk in their language. I'm in the belief that that's exactly what you're hearing.
Okay.
That was recorded. That was March 30th of last year, probably about 2:00 in the morning, 2:30, somewhere about there. I was probably about 15, 20 yards away from that, and I'd left the audio recorder sitting out on a metal table. And like I said, I habituate and I do the same thing over and over and over again. Well, I'd left a piece of metal on the table that particular night that I normally didn't do. And so when I first heard this audio, what I was under the impression of was that Junior came up and picked this piece of metal up, and Daddy said, "Put that down," and then the click. And it wasn't until after, some of the other stuff that I've recorded on audio, I've got 197 audio recordings at almost 10 hours a piece. So, there's a lot to go through. But this metallic click sound is actually, my belief, part of their language. I have done some stuff with that audio recorder. When I'm feeling like they're around and I'm talking to them, and and I'll go, make a click like that. It's amazing how when I listen to that on the audio recording, it sounds metallic.
Yeah,
Now, did you hear that at the time it was happening, or did you only hear it in the recording?
No, only in the recording. I had no idea. I had no idea.
Gotcha.
I'll play this other one, the Ho-Yo.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that particular night, I was having a lot of activity, and I was actually inside a tent on that particular night, and the audio recorder was outside once again, about 15, 20 yards away from the tent, and there's probably about 20 minutes worth of that audio, but that's the only spoken words that I could discern out of it. The rest of it was clicks and pops and sounds like that. You could tell they were coming from different distances and different locations, right there around the camp. But to me, it sounds like it's whispering "Ho-Yo Vey." I don't know. That's the best I can make out. But once again, I don't speak their language, so.
Yeah, but this last one's a bit strange because you think they're saying your name on it.
Yes.
Okay, let me get that up. Sorry, I made it into a massive loop there.
No, that's all right. And a lot of times that's what it takes to, to try and figure out what some of these,
that
words.
Sounds more spoken than the other one. That doesn't sound as electronic in a way, almost whispered.
Well, it was whispered. And to me, what it sounds like is that I'm, okay, in the speed that it's doing it, I'm working, Kevin. I'm working, Kevin. It could just be my mind, but you know, I've listened to that clip probably 50 times, 60 times, and you know, so I'm not trying to put words into what I'm hearing. I'm trying to, you know, hear what's being said and trying to match it up with, you know, our language. You know, it may not even be our language. You know, they may be saying something completely different. I don't know. I'm just saying that's what it sounds like. And you know, there was some. I was inside my tent that night. That particular night, there was an hour and 6 minutes of mumbling, clicking, popping. But that section right there is what I isolated out of actual discernible pronunciation, words being spoken.
Can I now flick back to the green eyes? Can
Absolutely.
we talk about were they like illuminating?
What it looked like was chem lights, a green chem light. There was a bright glow like that. You know, they were several inches apart, and you know, at that, you know, that particular time I saw it, because I've seen it more than once. But that particular night, well, I got to back up. That particular night, it was only one. There was only one, so it was like it was peeking out from behind the tree. The next time I saw it was actually two eyes at that same camp, and you know, this is kind of a, you know, one of those what the hell moments. Chuck and I were sitting there at camp, and I believe it was probably our second trip up there, and second or third, but we're sitting there, and you know, we had movement all around us, and we'd already had a couple of light zaps, and I got up and I said, I'm going to walk over to you if that's okay. And I started walking that direction. You know, fairly dark night, but not, you know, maybe less than a half a moon. And I walked probably 35 feet, and I got this absolute do not come any closer. You know, I stopped, and you know, so I'm talking to Chuck. I said, I just got, you know, hit with this don't come any closer. Well, are you going to come sit down? Hell no. You know, and so I took 3 more steps. You know, I'm known for pushing the envelope, but I took 3 more steps and was literally frozen in my tracks. I couldn't move my legs, couldn't move my arms. I could move my head okay. I could think fine. I could talk fine. I was just incapable of stepping forward, backward, left, or right. I was frozen in place. And, you know, so I'm telling Chuck, I can't move. And he goes, what do you mean you can't move? It's like I'm paralyzed. And I said, I get it. You want me to go sit back down? I'll go sit back down. And probably it was at least 50 feet away from me. And woof, he lit his eyes up green. And it was just like 2 big round chem lights, just bam. And I was just like, oh, okay, there you are. I'll go sit down now. And that's when he let go of me. And I turned around and went and sat back down. I was like, you know, what do I do with this? You know? Yeah, so it's like a bioluminescent. I don't know how they do it. I don't know why they do it. I just know they do it. They do what they do when they do it.
So it's actually emanating from the eyes. It's not reflection, light going in and being.
No. Yeah, it's
eyes. Wow.
Yeah, it's not eye shine. It's eye glow.
Wow.
What about smell then? Are you smelling anything? What is that about?
I don't know. Here's the funny part. The smell thing you know, at Squatch Camp, it was where I spent majority of my time. The only thing I ever smelled out there was fresh cow patties. Now, mind you, there's no cattle up there.
Yeah.
So it smelled like fresh cow pies. Scoured the area, looking for bear sign, looking for bear scat, looking for any kind of tracks. Never could find anything, and I've smelled that on a couple occasions. And then this new location I'm at, I smelled rotting flesh, and I know the smell of rotting flesh from Desert Storm. It's
Yeah.
and that's exactly what I smelled. Didn't see any ravens or any vultures around, looking for a meal. So can I say that was, one of the Squatch? No, I can't.
Sure.
It could have been a dead carcass laying there. And when I was smelling it, I was actually packing up camp to head home. So I was like, my next trip up here, I'll go see if I can find bones anywhere off in the direction of where this odor was coming from. So my next trip, I went back up there, and I covered probably about 3/4 of a mile, not straight out, but just zigzagging back and forth from the direction of where that smell was coming from. And I didn't find anything. That doesn't mean that there wasn't something there at one time.
Oh.
Yeah. And you're saying that you've got 4 or 5 different locations where you're seeing these or interacting.
Yes.
But, are they all the same looking? Is there anything different about each one? Or?
Well, the best look I ever got at one was a juvenile, about the size of a 6-year-old boy. It stepped out from some bushes and was heading towards a tree, and I was like, I see you. And he froze. Literally became a statue, and to the point where I was actually second guessing, did I actually just see this thing step out, or is that a stump? Yeah, it's funny how that thought process goes. And so I was watching him, and then he went behind a tree, and that was the last I saw of him. As far as facial features, I haven't seen any face. Well, I take that back. I I visited a group of bushes to relieve myself, and I was like, "Well, hello." On the other side of these bushes, there was a face looking back at me. Yeah, I was just like, okay, am I really seeing you, or is this pareidolia? And
Yeah.
so I was doing this, and and I kind of looked down. I said, well, if that's you, sorry, it's a little smaller guys. But I finished what I was doing, and I went to walk around the bushes because I was kept my eye on this face, and so I had to break contact as I came around the side of this large group of bushes, and there was nothing there. So I was like, yeah, it must have been pareidolia. So I went back and I stood in the same exact spot, and I stayed in that spot probably 5 minutes, up, down, left, right, moving around, and I could not recreate what I saw. But what I saw was it was a round face, kind of flat, pretty close to human looking. I definitely saw the eyes. I can't say anything about a nose or the mouth because of the way the bushes were, but so it was like probably this much of the face I could see looking back at me, up. And but now the first one I saw October of 2017. We shot that at 126 yards. Couldn't make any details out other than it was the color of rust and arms and legs and shoulders with no neck and the head. The the big guy, you know, like I only saw him for a second. The one, a couple of them have been skinny. The last sighting I had was back in July, and I just did a video on my YouTube page about it. It was actually a lot smaller than what I was thinking he was when we did the recreation. He turned out to be about 7 foot tall, kind of slender build. Not the big massive things that I've seen. You know, I had one that it was just kind of a side that I saw of them. It was either a polar bear or it was a white Bigfoot. And I'm here to tell you, there's no polar bear in the state of Arizona except for in a zoo.
Sure.
And that's down in Tucson. So, you know, so it was the same color as a polar bear, that kind of white. And I don't know if it was going back behind a tree or if it was stepping behind the tree, but I only got like, you know, from just off the side of the head, you know, so one arm, one leg, and one side of the body, and it went behind the tree. So I can't even begin to, you know, come up with what he looked like because I only, you know, got a partial vision of him. But
sure,
I would guess he was 9-10 foot.
Wow. On your page, you have quite a few videos. What kind of gifts have you received? Because I see there's one about exchanging gifts. What are you gifting them, and what kind of things are you receiving?
Okay, the giftings started with I had left out on my table at Squatch Camp square box, cardboard box container of cookies, and it had the cellophane top on it. And we had done a count on the cookies before I went to bed, and there was 9 cookies. And I think they were oatmeal chocolate chip, or I don't recall what kind they were, but something like that. Anyway, there was 9 cookies when we went to bed. There was 8 cookies when we got up, and the cellophane was kind of smashed down, like he was trying to get in through the cellophane and then realized the box would open, and, you know, out comes the cookies. So I started using white powdered donuts, primarily because of, you know, what they are. You know, you got the white powder donuts. So my gift stump over at Squatch Camp was that same log or stump I was telling you about where I put the granola bar. I took a lag bolt and I bolted a wooden tray on that. And so I would, you know, set powdered donuts in the corners. Then I'd have a couple of little glass beads that I would put in a pattern and come back and the powdered donuts were gone. Glass beads were moved into a different shape. And if it had been a raven or a squirrel or anything like that, there would have been a powdered donut mess all over the place. You know, 'cause
Sure.
You try and eat one of those and not make a mess. You know, so the only thing that was left on the tray was just a little pattern of where the donut actually had been.
Okay.
You know, so I started using the powdered donuts. Then I started. I've left them a cake, but it was actually a friend of mine. It was her birthday, and she wanted to take him a big old chocolate cake. So that's what we did.
You might want to start leaving them some insulin too. Well, diabetic Bigfoot out there.
Yeah, they really like blackberry pie.
Oh.
They really like apple pie, and they really like the powdered donuts. Things that they have left me for gifts. When I first left those powdered donuts out, when I very first started doing that, and I apologize for not having it here with me. It's in another room. But on the front bumper of my truck was a rock, you know, probably a little smaller than a hockey puck.
Okay.
You know, and the interesting part about this particular rock is geologically it does not exist in this particular area.
Oh.
You know, up on top of the Mogollon Rim, you'll find stuff like, you know, find a little bit of quartz, you'll find some flint, primarily all sandstone and pretty flimsy, brittle sandstone. You know, that geologically, that's about all you're going to find up there until you start getting farther back, you know, like 15, 20 miles from the edge of the rim. You know, then other geological features start to appear. But you know, what this looked like was a stone that would have been pulled out of a river. You know, it's fairly smooth, but one end of it is, you know, I want to say it's worn down, but it almost looks like it's melted. You know, it's just a very unusual rock, and so every time I'm out, I always have that rock with me, and I have it in my pocket. They've left me feathers. The most recent one was I'd left a blackberry pie. The pie had been sitting out for about 4 or 5 days. Some of the other guests I had with me had left some items on the stump, and you know, just wasn't having any reactions with it. And so I decided that I was going to remove half of the items. I ended up leaving a pine cone and an apple along with the pie. And so the next morning when I was walking back, I noticed that the pie container was not on the stump. And so I started doing a video shoot at that moment. And you know, as I got up to the stump, and I noticed the pie container was definitely not on the stump. But there was a raven feather stuck in the stump. And you know, the pie containers I use, it's the half a pie, and so it's a plastic container that's got 2 little push button tabs on it. So I'll break the seal and I'll open one tab, but the other tab is closed. You know, so if it's coyote, if it's a wolf, it's a bear, you know, a raven, raccoon, you know, you name it, anything tries to open that up, you're going to find claw marks on it. You're going to find teeth marks on it, and they're going to destroy the damn thing, trying to get that pie out of there. Right. And you know, so when I recovered these pie containers, and this actually was about 8 to 10 feet away from the stump, and opened up with absolutely no damage done, you know, to this plastic pie container. Wow. You know, so it takes something with opposable thumbs and intelligence, you know.
Yeah. Now I know we're about out of time, Kevin, but if you could please let people know how to stay in touch with what you're doing and how to stay in touch with you.
Okay. Just visit my YouTube channel, Arizona Squatch, and my my email address is Arizona Squatch 1, the number 1, not the word 1, Arizona Squatch 1 at outlook.com.
Outstanding. Daniela, anything?
Sorry, I'll just say I'll put that in the description for you. Okay. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you, they can.
Yeah,
I a lot more to say about all this. We've already kind of just, I think, scratched the surface with stuff you're doing. So we'll have you back on again, definitely, and delve a bit more into what you've been doing.
Yeah, I'm more than willing to come on anytime, as long as I'm not up in the mountains. You know, I spend a lot of time up there, but you know, I'd be more than happy to come back and, you know, answer questions to the best of my ability, and you know, it's.
Well, that's brilliant.
But, yeah, there's a lot of stuff I've learned that I would like to share, but like I said, it's just hours worth of.
Well, it's been wonderful having you on the show, brother. Thank you so much, and thanks for taking the time, providing the sound clips, some pictures for us to go through, and it's been a great honor meeting you as well. So thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, Danielle, anything else?
Yeah, I just want to mention that Kerry and Linda will be at the Texas Bigfoot Conference on the 19th of October. So if anybody wants to catch up with them, that is the place, the date, and the time to do it. So that's the 19th of October when they're going to be filming with Sisters of the Moon for the next Bigfoot Odyssey documentary.
Oh, wonderful.
Which I'm looking forward to. So,
that's
yeah, sorry. And also the expedition, if people want to go and check out that GoFundMe, please just chuck a few dollars in and get us to our goal as quick as we can. And we will be very, very grateful.
Absolutely. And thank you to all of you all out there watching us and participating in the shows. It's been a great honor for Don and I to be here and to help cover for Carrie's absence. But we are going to be over on the Paranormal Portal. If any of you guys want to come over there, shameless self plug. But thank you all for, what was that, Daniela?
I said, I'll come over. I'll come over and say hello.
That's a deal. We'll take you up on that. But thank you all for being here tonight. And of course, the Bigfoot Odyssey will be back again on Saturday, and you'll have a brand new, fresh show then. So you go. What?
We've got Claudia Ackley on, so yeah, it'll be a good one.
Excellent. So you don't want to miss that. So mark your calendars, and thank you all for putting up with Don and I for the night. And we will leave you now to your regular scheduled programs. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Good night. Bye.